Hey everyone, welcome to 𝗙𝗪𝗁𝗂. This video is an experiment. If you enjoy this, please let me know and I will do more. Thanks. What happens when a fictional serial killer with a code meets one of the most infamous real-life killers in history? Tonight, we explore a twisted tale of Dexter Morgan versus the infamous Jeffrey Dahmer. First, we have to understand the combatants. First, Dexter. As we all know, he is a fictional character, the protagonist of the TV show Dexter and its spin-offs. He is based on Jeff Lindsay's Dexter novels. What are his crimes? He is a vigilante serial killer who targets other murderers and criminals. His motivation? He is driven by a dark passenger that resides somewhere deep in his psyche. But he channels his urges into a code that was instilled by his adopted father, Harry Morgan, who taught him to kill only those who deserve it.
It was really Harry who paved the road to my salvation.
Have you ever wanted to kill anything else? Like a person?
His lessons have never failed me.
His personality, he's charismatic, he's charming, handsome too, if I might add. Dexter blends into society as a blood splatter analyst for the Miami Metro Police Department, and he uses that to mask his darker tendencies by indulging in all the macabre and blood that the Miami PD can provide.
Blood. Sometimes it sets my teeth on edge.
I'm afraid your urge to kill is only going to get stronger. We can do something to channel it. Use it for good.
I don't know.
His ultimate outcome over the series, he's seen grappling with his morality, relationships, and the consequences of his actions. And then there's Jeffrey Dahmer, a man whose real-life horrors shocked the world. His name sends shivers down spines. Between 1978 and 1991, Dahmer claimed the lives of 17 young men, leaving a trail of horror that shocked the world. Born in 1960 in the Milwaukee, Wisconsin area, Dahmer displayed troubling signs from an early age, including an obsession with dissection and an interest in roadkill, but no one could predict the darkness that lay ahead. His crimes were gruesome. He lured victims with the promises of money or companionship. He then drugged, strangled, and dismembered them. His methods escalated, leading to necrophilia and cannibalism. His motivations were driven by a mix of sexual desire, emotional isolation, and a need for control. He killed out of compulsion. Rooted in a severe psychological disorder, his killings were chaotic and without an ethical framework. He did display some level of self-awareness as contrasted with Dexter, who was keenly self-aware, but he expressed some remorse in interviews. However, it is often doubted whether those were legitimate or just a way to mask the true darker urges that he had.
Frankly, I wanted death for myself. I knew I was sick or evil or both. Now I believe I was sick. The doctors have told me about my sickness, and now I have some peace.
Dahmer struggled with forming genuine emotional connections. His action dehumanized his victims and turned them into objects to simply fulfill his needs. And now, what would happen if these two figures crossed paths? What would happen if the vigilante met the cannibal? Let's find out. It's the early 90s. It's late night in Miami, Florida. The neon glow of the city lights bounces off the wet pavement as Jeffrey Dahmer, out of his element, finds himself in unfamiliar territory. He's on the run from his home state of Wisconsin, leaving a trail of suspicion and fear. Unbeknownst to him, Dexter Morgan, a young intern with the Miami-Dade Police Department, with a dark secret of his own, has been watching. Both men enter a club. Dexter takes a seat at the bar and overhears two men talking about a few missing friends in the city that have been unaccounted for. This is common in Miami with a large rate of violent crime. And of course, Dexter thinks to himself, another predator in my city. It's time for me to make a move. Dexter, a meticulous forensic analyst, an intern by day and a vigilante killer by night, has already compiled a detailed profile of Dahmer. He's identified him as a predator, a perfect fit for Dexter's code, his code, taught to him by his father, Harry. Tonight, Dexter plans to make Dahmer his next victim. Across the bar, Dahmer is sitting nursing a drink, scanning the room with his predatory gaze. Dexter slides into the seat beside him and feigns a casual interest. Dexter puts on his biggest, brightest smile and says, "You're new around here. You just passing through?" Dahmer, very hesitant, looks over his circular round glasses into his beer and simply mutters, "Something like that." Though prompted and otherwise annoyed, he does engage in some small talk with Dexter. Dexter uses his training in forensics and analysis to expertly draw out information while masking his own intent. Dahmer, while cunning in his own right, underestimates Dexter's capabilities, mistaking him for just an ordinary man, though an annoying one. It's just then that Dahmer spies a much younger and much more muscular young man in tighter clothes walking by. He excuses himself from what he is starting to see as some sort of interrogation and follows his new intended target. Dexter watches them as they talk for a bit at the bar, each having a drink, and then decides to follow them when they leave the club and see what plays out. While they walk, he notices that Dahmer is luring him to a nearby apartment building in a fairly sketchy neighborhood in downtown Miami. We see Dexter keenly keeping about 100 paces back while viewing the two as they walk. Dexter starts to piece together Dahmer's disturbing pattern, but even he wonders, can he actually take the atrocities he might witness should he follow them? However, lucky for the young man, he decides that Dahmer's a little too weird for him, and he leaves Dahmer standing on the street. Dahmer, clearly frustrated, appears to be arguing and yelling at himself in the air out in front of his own apartment building, and in an anger storms in. This gives Dexter the opportunity to see his exact address and his apartment number, and he decides he will return for an unannounced visit the next day. The next morning, after observing Dahmer leave his apartment, Dexter approaches. Convinced that Dahmer will be gone for at least an hour or more, he decides to jimmy his way into the apartment by use of a credit card. Once he's inside, he surveys all that's in front of him. He's heard reports of Dahmer's activities in Wisconsin and what was found in his Milwaukee apartment, and he knows what to expect as he opens the refrigerator and the freezer, as well as some nondescript circular tubs. What he sees is a macabre mixture of what was once living parts, as well as a familiar odor of death. Even with everything that he has seen, Dexter is truly horrified at what's in front of him. There is nothing unique about Dahmer. He's nothing special. He does nothing remarkable with his craft. He only slashes and burns for what only Dexter can define as a carnal pleasure. In other words, to Dexter, not only is this man dark, he's also sloppy and mediocre. And it makes him a perfect target for the Code. He has to deal with him. Harry and the Code demand it. He surveils Dahmer the rest of the day and into the evening to see him walk to another gay club in which Dexter enters. This time, he engages him in less interrogative conversation and eventually piques Dahmer's interest. He says, "Hey, I'm going to a private party hosted by some friends. There will be a lot of people there. Why don't you accompany me?" Dahmer, thinking he's in control of the situation, decides to go with Dexter to an abandoned dockside warehouse. Seeing Dexter as naive, he figures he can either opportunistically prey on him or find some other young twink to take home. But as they arrive at the warehouse, the atmosphere shifts. The room, nay, the whole building, is eerily quiet. Plastic shooting, which Dahmer originally thought was part of the party's ambiance, hangs in meticulous straight-line patterns from the catwalk above. It's insanely clean. There is an almost sterile appearance to the room. In the middle, he notices a metal table about the length of a human body, draped also in plastic, and a meticulously placed surgeon's table with a myriad of instruments that Dahmer has never worked with himself. He begins to shake a little bit, wondering what he's gotten himself into, but before he can react, he feels a pinprick in the back of his neck and the minuscule pump of a hypodermic needle, and suddenly everything goes black. When he awakes, he feels himself strapped down to that same metal table. The cold steel is biting into his skin. He also feels the crinkle of plastic both under his body and around his body. He cannot move. His legs are bound together, his feet, his arms are bound to his torso. Indeed, he cannot even speak. He can barely breathe until he suddenly sees the dark eyes of Dexter Morgan over him, his dark passenger in full control. He feels the pressure of a scalpel on the plastic covering his mouth and the sudden gasp as pressure lets off and he can breathe again. And Dexter speaks. "You've done horrible things, Jeffrey. Taken lives, destroyed families. But now it ends." Dexter, knowing the jig is up, decides to argue back. "And what makes you so different from me?" Dexter replies, "I have a code. You don't. I take out the monsters. You are one. I kill those who hurt others. You kill to feed your sick desires. There's a difference between you and me." Dahmer, then realizing his manipulative charm won't work on Dexter, thrashes against the restraints in one last final hope. But Dexter, as always, is meticulous. And with one final farewell, he delivers his final judgment with precision and cold resolve. The end. What you think? I hope you enjoyed that. If this proves to be something that you all want, I will be more than happy to do a Dexter versus series, and I will do any type of any any murderer or any criminal that you would like me to put up against Dexter. I think this is great, especially with the new TV show Dexter Origins being such a great, awesome show on Paramount Plus. You should check that out. Even if you have never watched the original Dexter, it's still a great starting point for you. Definitely check it out. And please let me know down below what you thought of this and if you'd like to see more. Thank you again so much for joining me. And until next time, Gen X.